Hello everyone and welcome to Medford Anywhere Learning TV. We're glad you're tuned in. We want to give a shout out to our friends at Southern Oregon PBS, KTVL, KDRV, and the Dove Network. Thank you for hosting us on your station. In the Medford School District, we have one shared vision, and that we believe that all are learning, and learning is for all. And what better place to do that than right here on Medford Anywhere Learning TV.
Hi everyone, thanks for being here today. My name's Annie and I'm joined here with a couple of my friends, my daughter Grace and Michael. Luckily for me, they agreed to show up today so that I can help teach you or give you some ideas on some things that you can do at home. Much like everybody in almost the entire world, we are also quarantined, not able to go to our sports practices, not able to go to school, not able to go out shopping and do all the daily errands that we're used to doing.
You can go shopping, but you have to wear a mask.
What? Essential items, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. I am here to bring you some activities that you can do using everyday, daily things straight from your house. I used to be a Montessori school teacher, and in Montessori schools, you learn through doing, and you learn through the senses. And when you're doing things with your hands, one, you're actively engaged and you're concentrating, and those are all skills that we need so we can be better learners. Okay, so I brought some things from my house that I am going to use to spark some ideas for both you and your parents on some things that you could do at home. That's something that's a little bit different. It's not a math problem, it's not a worksheet, just something around your home environment that you can use to just try some different skills. I'll show you some of the things that I have. One thing I found from my kitchen is a set of tongs, a tiny little itty bitty spatula. Oh, what's this called? Gracie, do you know what this is called?
No, but I know what you use it for.
What do you use it for?
It's like when you make a turkey or chicken, you like suck up all the juice or something, the oil.
Yeah, it's called a baster. It's called a baster. So these are all things that are familiar to my own daughter and to other kids at home. These are basic things that everybody has in their kitchen. I also raided my pantry and found some half-eaten croutons, some marshmallows, which Michael has been eyeballing this whole time. And I'm going to give you some ideas on some things that you can do just for a change of pace. Grace has an activity that I call leaf polishing. Who's ever polished a leaf before? I don't know. Not many people have, but if you notice, well, don't look too close, but my houseplants in my house are a little bit dusty. I don't really dust them very often, but if you look on Grace's tray, she has a spray bottle. She has a bit of a sponge that I cut really easily, and she has some Q-tips. And if I give her these tools and send her around the house, she's been doing this since she was really little, say, hey, Gracie, I need you to go polish the leaves. They're looking really dusty. All of a sudden, she's busy for, I don't know, 5 minutes, 15 minutes, anything from in there. So Gracie, can you just show them how you do it? And this plant is a little hard to see, but it was the easiest one to bring here into the studio today. But so just give it a spray and show them right along. It's pretty easy. So some of the big ones, some of the bigger plants, you can do it, Grace. Okay. Go ahead. Yep. Some of the bigger plants are easier, but it was hard for me to bring a really big tree into the studio today. So she's just going to really carefully take each individual leaf, little by little, with a little sponge, each individual leaf, and then she can dry it with the Q-tip. And as she's doing it, she's just checking it out, just to see that it's dust-free. Good cause and effect and caring. She's learning indirectly how to care for her environment. And then our friend Michael has another really cool work, which parents may not really think of this. He has a really giant egg in front of him. It's a hard-boiled egg. And I just want you to hold it up for a second, Michael, so they can get an idea of the size of it. This isn't any old chicken egg. This is a really special goose egg that came from the farm. And goose eggs are about 3 times larger than the normal eggs. And so I gave Michael this particular work so that he could peel it. He could use his tiny fingers and peel open the eggshells and then put it in his other bowl. And one of the reasons why this is a really good activity, one, it's just kind of fun. Traditionally, parents usually just do this for the kids, but this is a way that children can get involved. Children love to be responsible for a task and do something that they feel like is helping another person in their family. So these are just two examples of activities that we in a Montessori classroom would call practical life. Practical life are activities that are part of everyday living, whether you're a small 5-year-old kindergartner like Michael, or you're...
I'm 6, but...
Excuse me, if you are a 6-year-old like Michael, or if you're someone really old like me. These are tasks that need to get done and that really any age can do. All right, so the next thing I want to show you is something that we call dry pouring. So pouring things is something part of everyday life, another aspect of practical life. We pour our cereal in the morning. We need to pour the milk in the cereal. We need to pour coffee if you're a mom like me that desperately needs that in the morning. So what I've set up on their trays is an opportunity for them to just practice dry pouring using some objects that I found around the house. So let's look and see what we have here. Michael has just some dried beans in 2 canisters, and Michael's going to start with the smaller bottle, and he's going to pour it into the bigger bottle. And that's all, something super easy. He's a pro. Traditionally, this would be a task that you would introduce to maybe a preschool age student, and Michael's a little bit older than that. He's 6 years old, not 5. So he's a pro. So Michael, if you would just kind of go back and forth and use that, and do that, and then Grace, Michael, you can keep going, and Grace, why don't you get started? So Grace has some dry rice in her canister, and Grace's is a little bit bigger. You'll notice that both of them started on the left-hand side, and they're moving to the right. There's a reason for that if you set it up. It's because we read from left to right. So while they're doing that pouring exercise, they're training their brain. They're training their brain to remember that they need to start on the left and go to the right. They don't need to know that. That's just something for the parents to know. Another thing that's happening, you don't realize it, is Gracie is getting a good solid dose of knowing the concept of full and empty. She had to recognize that the smaller bottle was full and couldn't hold anymore. And that's a decision you got to make when you're pouring something, right? Practical life. In practical life, sometimes things overflow. Good news. It's on a tray. I had already told them that this work that I set them up with, it's to stay at that one designated spot in the house that I allocated, in this case in our studio classroom here. So the fact that Grace has a lot of rice all over her tray really isn't that big of a deal, because she's getting to use her fingers to pick them up and to drop it back in. And Gracie, if you would, demonstrate this really good for me. Use these 3 fingers to pick up that rice, if you can. Can you use these 3 fingers? And here's the reason why I want Grace to use these 3 fingers. Because when you hold a pen or a pencil, these are the 3 fingers that you use to write with. So as Grace is using these 3 pincer fingers, she's strengthening those muscles that you need in order to write. So again, this usually is an activity that I would present to a 3, 4, 5-year-old and just have them practice using different objects. You could use I use dried beans and rice here, but you could use anything. Another very practical life skill is using a spoon. When you eat cereal in the morning, you have to use the spoon, hold it, and have that ability, those motor skills in order to get it just right. You don't want to spill it everywhere, do you? But younger children aren't used to using adult spoons all the time. That's why we usually give them a smaller one in the beginning. But you can make practicing spooning and their accuracy a fun activity by just creating some work for your child. So let's look at Michael and Grace, what they have in front of them. Michael has a bowl with just a normal size tablespoon like I would use, anyone would use to eat soup. And then Grace has a different spoon set that just came with these tiny bowls, and sometimes they use it for different things. But they're just gonna, on this work, they're just gonna take Michael's got it. He's gonna take his spoon and move from one side to the other. Grace, actually, the contents of hers is actually coffee grounds. Can you smell it still, Gracie, those coffee grounds?
Yeah.
All right, there's also spin-off activities you can use for the spooning exercises. I gave Michael and Grace some different size spoons and a new container to put them in. As you can see, it's just a cupcake container. But I have them, go ahead, Gracie, you can do it. I have them using different shaped spoons to fill the container. So a few things are going on here. They're getting that same motion, that muscle memory by doing the scooping, but they're also indirectly getting some math skills, estimation, full versus empty, how much volume something can hold. So these are all things that indirectly their brains is naturally, they're training their brains to naturally understand these concepts. And, you know, it's just kind of fun to work with some different things sometimes. You could use something like flour, you could use cereal, you could use anything that you can scoop would be an option. So as you can see, these guys are working really fast and scooping the beans, filling them right up, and really getting some hands-on learning done. All right, another idea that you can use to create some work using household items is tong work, using tongs. Michael and Grace both have some activities in front of them. Grace, hold up your tong.
It's
Grace's
tweezers.
tong is actually a set of tweezers, which really is just a mini tong, right, Grace?
Yeah.
And Michael, let's see your tong. Yeah, and he's got a bigger one. I think I got that from Olive Garden when we ordered it to go recently. All right, so what they're going to do is working left to right, because that's the way we read, connecting the left brain to the right brain. They're just going to move the objects from the bowl into the container. Grace has an ice cube tray, and Michael just has a bottle that I found laying around in the pantry. This work stays interesting when you change up the objects. I might have told Gracie that it would be okay if she snuck a mini marshmallow every now and then. Hey, Michael, you've got those cut up rubber bands that you're using. You were telling me earlier that they kind of remind you of something. You want to tell everybody at home?
I used to I go fishing at a private pond, and one time I caught a 3 or 4 pounder, and these remind me I stick these on my hook.
Yeah, so the rubber bands remind Michael of when he goes fishing and he has to use it. All right, are you guys ready for the next exercise? This next one's going to get a little bit fun because this is, we did dry pouring already. This one we're going to do wet pouring. What do you think wet pouring is, Gracie? Pouring what?
Something that's wet.
Yeah, something that's wet. That was really tricky. A liquid, you know? So in front of Michael, he has on his tray 2 containers. One has a little bit of water and a cut of a sponge, a 2-inch by 2-inch roughly. And he's just going to take his hands, dip the sponge in the water, soak up all that water, and then squeeze it into the smaller container that he has. Can you do that again for everybody, Michael?
Mm-hmm. I just have to wipe
Maybe we'll
up
get an
my
overhead
drips.
shot so we can really show everybody your strong grip strength that you have, really squeezing that water out. And what's happening is, one, Michael is engaged. He's using some concentration. He's trying to be very precise to not make a mess. But also what's happening is Michael's hands and the muscles in his hands are strengthening. He's increasing that grip strength. I don't know if you noticed, but Michael's got a, what kind of shirt do you have on, Michael?
Cubs.
And who's the Cubs?
Baseball team.
Michael's favorite. He's an avid baseball player, loves the Cubs. So, you know what good baseball players need? They need good grip strength. They need to be able to hold it really tight and swing the bat and then grab the ball and throw it. So Michael doesn't realize this, but as he's doing this work and moving and engaging his left brain and his right brain, he's increasing his grip strength at the same time, getting that muscle memory in there. And then there's Miss Gracie, who's really anxious because she has a sweet treat in front of her. She's a little bit older, so I gave her a little bit more of a difficult activity. Grace is going to take the sparkling water and pour it into the container that I placed in front of her. And this activity is fun when you vary up the shapes. You know, I could have just given her a normal drinking glass, but in this case, I decided to give her something with a little bit of a more narrow top, just to make it a little more difficult. And then I wanted to step it up a notch, and I gave her an even more narrow container. And you know what? In front of her on her tray, she has a towel. If she spills it a little bit, it's no problem. She'll just soak it up with the towel because this is all practical life. So a way that you could advance this activity is you could change up the type of liquid that you're using.
Okay.
Sometimes you know how at the end of, in the shower, when you get that last little bit of shampoo, you could use that as something to pour it. It doesn't pour out as fast, so it's a little more difficult. Or Grace, what do we have? What did we get from the bees recently?
Honey.
Honey. And we had to pour all the honey into different containers. Some of them were really big, some of them were really small. And then for another extension, you could add a funnel and have the child pour the liquid or whatever it is through the funnel, just to have something different. Again, just to keep them engaged using household items that you know, these are all things that I found right in my kitchen drawer. All right, another great activity for you. This one I call making a necklace. Today we're not really gonna make a necklace because remember in the beginning I promised these are not things that I bought from the store. These are all just everyday activities or everyday objects that I got from my house. And as it turns out, I did not have any string readily available. So I had to improvise. But that's okay because the movement that I want you to learn from making a necklace is still going to come across in this activity. Let's look at the objects that Michael and Grace have before them.
Have a kebab
One,
stick.
they have a colander. Do you know what a colander is?
Wait, what's a colander? Is it this?
Nope, point to the
This.
colander. Who knows? Yes, Grace is holding a colander.
No, this is a
And usually
string.
you use this in the kitchen. You might have seen your mom or your dad using it to, let's say, wash fruit. You get some strawberries and you get them home from the store and you want to wash them. You put them in the colander, let the water run over them, and then it comes out the bottom through the holes. In this case, the colander is just going to be used as a prop to hold steady the string that I didn't have.
Kebab stick.
To substitute the string, I'm going to use a kebab stick, which is actually something that's a lot easier for younger kids instead of start threading with a string. So why don't you, Grace, if you could, show Michael and stick the kebab stick in the hole, and that's just going to stabilize it. And then also in front of them, they have a measuring cup that has, Grace, what is that?
It's a 2/3 cup full of macaroni.
So in this activity, all the child is going to do is thread the macaroni, in this case, thread the macaroni through the kebab stick. And this is an important task because one, it's just something different to occupy the children, enhance their fine motor skills and their concentration skills. But another thing is happening on a different level. They're learning how to insert the object in place. And these are this is the beginning entry skill that you would use on a more advanced technique to sew. If you thread a needle, you would need it to weave that needle in and out in order to make the design that you're looking for. That's what you need to do. Another practical way that you would thread is to put on a belt. Thread your belt through the belt loops. That's another way. So all in all, they're learning the skills, their movement, how to control their body, how to concentrate on a task from beginning to end. To pick up those macaronis, the child really has to concentrate and use those fine motor skills, specifically these 3 fingers, which are important. Grace, why are these 3 fingers important?
Because they're like how you hold a pencil.
Those are the 3 fingers that you use to hold a pen or a pencil. And so oftentimes you'll see students try to grab with their whole fist and hold the pencil, and it makes it really hard for them to write. If you see that action going on, try and find some activities that you can do where your child has to concentrate and pick up and set down using these 3 fingers. This next exercise is a really fun one. I think probably you've not used sugar in your classroom normally in the Medford School District, but the classroom at home, I told you we could use anything we wanted. So in this case, I decided to give Michael and Grace 2 different canisters, each containing sugar. These are just things that I had around the house. Grace has the sugar that I use every morning for my coffee. And Michael, hold yours up. What do you have? What color is your sugar?
Red sugar.
And what do you think you use that for?
Cupcakes.
Yeah, I use them when I decorate cupcakes, which, if I'm being honest, doesn't happen very often. But Here we are. So Michael and Grace, let me give you the directions because I don't know that you've done this exercise already. I just want you to pour a little bit of the sugar. Gracie, I want you to maybe pour 2 seconds worth, have it come out. And Michael, yours is a shaker. So I want you to shake it, let's say 5 times, and you can count as you're shaking. Right.
1,
Go for it.
2, 3, 4,
Mississippi,
5.
All right, that's good. So as you can see, Grace has a small mountain of sugar, and Michael has that red sugar, which showed up really nicely on that yellow. So I gave them these paintbrushes, and I haven't even told them what to do yet, but intuitively, they understood that I want them to pick up the paintbrush and brush the sugar into the dot that I used a Sharpie or a marker and made on their paper. This is just a different way to get students, they're practicing holding the pencil and getting that movement down.
I got too much.
But you did get too much, so you can start over. Maybe, Grace, you could use your paintbrush, in this case, to brush it away from the circle. You could change up this activity in a number of ways. You could draw all sorts of different lines on the paper and cover them up. You could use graph paper and try and cover up different squares in the graph paper. All right, another exercise with using things that you found, that I found around my house, and things that you can find around your house. This exercise has to do with cutting, and there's a million ways that you can practice cutting. Younger children, preschool, kindergarten, first, second grade, really need to practice developing that motion. It's not a natural motion. So you can make that practice fun. Let's take a look. Michael, it's okay if you want to get started cutting along the white lines. Well, the reason why, what it is that Michael is cutting are paint samples that I got from the store. I'm thinking about redesigning the living room at my house, and I have to decide what color I want to use. So I have all these different samples. So in the spirit of using what I had available, I decided, hey, this would be a good activity for somebody to practice cutting. So Michael's here using those paint samples, and he just uses one snip and cuts it all the way through. And if you'll notice, he's really concentrating hard. He's got a task, and he's working on it. Once he was done with that, what I could do as an extension is have Michael then glue those square cutouts to a piece of paper. He's got a couple more left. Looks like Michael is right-handed, which is something to pay attention to. Sometimes, if a left-handed child doesn't always know, sometimes a teacher or a parent goes immediately to put the scissors in their right hand. So that's just a quick check there. So Michael's rocking and rolling on that cutting exercise. And because I didn't have multiple scissors at the house, he's going to pass the scissors over to his friend Grace. And on Grace's sheet, if you'll look, or Gracie, if you will hold up your sheet just for a minute, I drew some lines on there. Those lines are just ideas for Grace. The first one, I just want her to do one snip all along. And believe it or not, I've worked in a classroom for many, many years with 3 to 6-year-olds in particular. This is a great exercise for them. And scissor activities are a huge hit with them. Usually grown-ups don't immediately think to put a pair of scissors in a child's hand, but children see their parents, see adults, see the people in their everyday world using these tools, and they want to use them too. So if we just take the time to settle down and give them the training and give them activities where it's appropriate and it's okay, then they're engaged, they're using their concentration, and they're developing some of their fine motor skills all at once. Of course, you want to put some parameters on it, like I said earlier. The work that was set aside stays on that tray. It doesn't leave the table. We don't move the scissors all around. You know, Michael's cheering because he's such a rule follower. So I put a couple of different designs. You don't have to do them, Gracie. We're just giving everyone a little taste right here. But you could do zigzags. You could cut out entire shapes, trace something, and then cut them out. Anything you can really think of is a fun cutting exercise for the little guys. Double thumbs up from Michael. Gets a double thumbs up from me too. Another really fun one for you today. Michael and Grace each have in front of them, what is that there, Grace? What's that yellow thing? That small yellow thing.
Oh, it's a thing that helps you hold corn.
Have you ever used one of those things before, Michael? You have? a corn on the cob holder. You stick it in the ends of the corn on the cob, and then you eat it so your hands don't get all yucky. Well, I promised I was using things that were just around the house, and one of the things that I found in my drawer were a bunch of corn on the cob holders, and I thought to myself, oh, that reminds me of a really great exercise that really keeps kids engaged that I never would have thought of until I became a teacher. So Michael and Grace each have some objects that I just traced just to get it ready for them. They're going to use that corn on the cob holder, and they are going to push through the paper on the object that I drew. So Michael, on yours, you have 3 triangles. Do you see the triangles, Michael? Mm-hmm. So see if you can use the corn on the cob holder to punch along the black line that you see. And there's a couple of things that are going on here. This is hard work. This is not easy. They really have to use their muscles to really punch through there. Oh, I forgot to tell you something important. Underneath them, they don't have a tray, and they're not punching directly into the tabletop. What they have is a cardboard. We got an order yesterday. I ordered some new trees, and the trees came in these big, giant boxes. So I cut pieces of the cardboard out for this particular activity. So any box that you get from Amazon or in the mail, you can use, because it gives it just enough cushion to make it so it's not going against the hard table, getting some indents. Gracie, what is that like over there? Is it easy or hard?
Hard.
It is. It's hard work. So they really have to concentrate, for one, and they really have to use their muscles to hold the corn on the cob holder the right way. There's really only one way you can hold it. You can't, it's not big enough to let you hold the whole thing all at once. In the classroom, when I was a teacher, this was one of the favorite tricks that we would whip out when there was a child that had a lot of energy. They were kind of, you know, you've seen it, everyone's seen it, just a lot of spunk, you know, whatever reason, maybe they had too much sugar in that last exercise that we did, but for whatever reason, this is always an activity that was a really good way to help calm the student down. Changing out the objects or tracing different familiar objects was something that was fun. Grace is actually tracing a teeny tiny frying pan that I had. I should have showed you that, but it's just that shape. You could use the first letter of their name or a circle or a triangle. Yeah, Grace is getting tired. It's okay if you got to take a break. It's hard work. Yeah. Pro tip, if I were using this every day in my classroom and not just trying to spark some ideas for you at home, I would prefer that there was really only one way to make the holes. So the corn on the cob holder has 2 prongs. I would rather only have one. In fact, my husband, when I did teach in the classroom, my husband actually took a special tool and took off that second one. So there was really only one. So I think they're having a little bit hard time because there's 2 prongs on this one, but we're using what we have available and just trying to do something new.
And one's higher and one's lower.
And one is higher and one is lower, making it extra hard. So not only do you have to get that longer one in, but then you got to press the shorter one in too.
But
so
they're kind of the same height. They're kind of the same height.
Yeah, they're almost the same height. One's a little bit taller, right?
They're just like the height.
That's right. Yeah, just so much. So then usually what I do is I cut out, I help the child or help the student push it out, or if they did a really, really tight-knit group, the inside should just fall out. But then they can just glue it to a piece of paper and then get to see their work. So this is what it looks like at the end, right, Michael? This exercise, again, is a really great way to help kids calm down, stay engaged, really concentrate on something. This is hard work. And who doesn't feel good when they are able to accomplish something that's really hard? Thanks for being here with me today. Thanks for being with Grace and Michael as they continue on working. I really hope that you are able to come up with some new ideas of ways that you can be engaged. You can practice some of those practical life skills that we all use in everyday life.
Thanks for tuning in to Medford Anywhere Learning TV. Medford School District is a place where all are learning, and learning is for all.